Day 4, you rock. Especially if you're watching these after the other ones have happened and you're blasting them all in one go, even better. So day 4, great. So we're kind of about halfway through some of the basics of getting into the Pandeiro now. So we've looked at how to hold it, how to tip it, how to create a bass sound and start to tip the drum a little, which is what we're going to look at today. The slap sound. We've looked at an introduction phrase for a Partido Alto, kind of samba groove, which we are going to look at again in this little video. So today we're going to look more at tipping the drum, this technique. I'm going to talk a bit about why that's important. And also 2 more new sounds. Well, 1 new sound, but on 2 parts of your hand. What we're going to call the heel and the fingers, all right? So your heel here is going to hit on the edge of the drum, and your fingers, similarly, are going to hit on the edge of the drum. And how that's going to happen is we're going to make a relationship between tipping the drum to meet those parts of the hand so that we're not always static here and doing everything with this hand, because otherwise this hand's just going to stay here holding the drum, getting Lego hand, like we said, the claw, and this hand's going to be doing loads and loads of work. So you're not really very balanced in the body, which for any instrument or any activity is not great when you overcompensate in one side. This technique is something that I learned from 2 of my teachers and many, many teachers of yours, no doubt, who are Marco Suzano and Sérgio Krakowski, who have signed my drum alongside Aeto Moreira, who just wrote yes, which I thought was marvellous. I asked him if he could sign my drum and he said yes and wrote yes, so there you go. But Marco Suzano and Sérgio Krakowski, 2 Pandeiro and percussion artists who I really, really look up to, who I've had the privilege of having some lessons with, who introduced me to this technique, and I can't tell you enough how much it completely just revolutionised my playing and that of loads of my peers and, you know, pals who play and students of mine and all this kind of stuff. Just everybody who has learned it has just gone, oh God, just wish I'd learned that in the beginning. So I'm going to teach it to you from the beginning because it all feels a bit clunky at the beginning at times. So you might as well learn this technique now and then it will serve you over and over and over for years to come. So here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to create a relationship between the 2 sides of the hand. So we're going to be imagining that every time we use the top part of the hand, if you remember, was for slaps and finger touches, we're going to bring the top part of the drum up to meet those. And if we're using the thumb, tone, and the heel of the hand, we're going to be bringing the bottom of the drum to meet those. So what we get is this rather than this. Yeah, straight away you can see, even though I'm not playing clearly, I'm jingling though, we are not getting this equal balance, this relationship between the 2 hands, which is ultimately what we want. So to practice that, we're going to do 2 things. Step 1 is locate this hand on the drum. You want to be quite relaxed in the same way as we were when we did the slap. So we've got a little pocket of air in there, but as if you were to just drop your hand and relax it, rather than it being, you know, if you relaxed your arm like that, you wouldn't be like this and you wouldn't be like this. You'd kind of be like this, fingers a little bit relaxed, and tip that over. That's about right, probably for you. So we're not looking for this cuppy thing where we could, like, you know, live in there. And we're not looking for something totally flat, because what we will get if we're flat is a lot of the sound of the rest of the drum, and we don't want that. What we're trying to do with the tip is actually get the jingles going, right? So we're not looking to sound the drum. I'm ready to get some machine accident there. That would be a great one to practice. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So here, what we're looking to do is sound these wonderful satinellas, these little metal discs, yeah? So we're going to do that by using the heel and the fingertips on the edge. So we're going to go about here onto the edge. If we're too far in, we're not quite going to sound the jingles and we're going to get a lot of the sound of the drum. Yeah. So we're looking at going quite near to the edge. And again, I've got my finger off at the moment still, but if you want to, you could put it on. It's up to you just to try that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the week. So, here we go. We're going to, first of all, step 1, just rock like a seesaw this right hand of ours, or left hand if you're left-handed. Obviously, flip everything around in reverse. So first of all, without moving this one, such a habit for me now that I do it a lot. Notice that I'm seesawing between one or the other rather than this. Not separate movements, it's one flowing movement rather than hit, hit, hit. It's just do, 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 rocking. Yeah? So practice that first. So I'm just gonna go between the heel and the fingers with this hand still to start with, which is hard for me now because that's just proof that that technique is so embedded for me now. Now I'm holding this up to exaggerate the movement, but what we want is still the waist height thing, slightly tipped thing, a bit away from the body. I'm not totally close to the body, yeah? And you can practice that with a few things like 1, 2, 3, 4, da ga da ga da ga da ga, 1, 2, 3, 4, da ga da ga da ga da ga, 1, 2, 3, 4, da ga da ga da ga da ga. I get asked this a lot in person. How many fingers should I use? Okay, so if you just test it out, you'll probably find the answer. 1 finger. I'm just going to hear this. 2 fingers. It's okay. 3 fingers. Okay, cool. 4 fingers. If your little finger even reaches and fits in, then it can join the party, but it's not going to sound as much as maybe the others because it's shorter. Mine is anyway. So use all of them. You're trying to create a beater, effectively, aren't you? Any time you hit the drum with a pandeiro, you're sort of using your fingers or your finger ends like a beater, like a stick. Step 2, so practice that if you need to, pause. Step 2 is to introduce what we're going to call, I'm going to call the tip, right? The tip that I'm going to give you is going back to this, right from day 1, yeah? And then rather than turning it over all the way, this time we're going to make it more subtle. So we're only going to go, this small amount rather than all the way around. We're going to imagine that the bottom half of the drum is attached to the bottom part of this hand for tones. So we come to meet it. Or heels. Okay. We're also going to do the same thing in reverse. Imagine that the top part of the drum meets the top part of the hand, which is for a slap. I'm exaggerating, but just to give the point. Yeah? Or for a finger hit. So something now is hopefully going to click, and it may take a little practice for you to get the fluency of this, and it's something I'm still working on. I'm very open about that, Practicing technique is an ongoing thing. You can go as far as you want with that, but to give you the basics, this should be enough to start off with. So we're gonna do, first of all, get the right hand going. Heel, finger, heel, finger, heel, finger. While we do that, we're gonna try and remember, okay, the bottom part comes to meet the bottom part of my hand, okay. Oh yeah, it does, yeah. Oh, that's cool, because that gives me automatic, the freedom to sort of move on to that part. It kind of becomes common sense really, and just physics, like, oh, I've done that one, so naturally the next one's that one, yeah, rather than it just wouldn't flow in that way. So give this a go first of all, this tip. This might need to be very slow, even like this, just for your brain to actually make those connections, to get your arms to do that with the drum. And I would say the fun thing about this is to create your own practice little wiggles, your own little rhythms. So for me, one that I do in class a lot with people is like the one I did earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4, da ga da ga da ga da ga. 1, 2, 3, 4. If that starts to sound a bit rough, because it might be that you are overemphasizing one hand, first of all, like this, and not notice it, because it could be that one part of your hand is more dominant, which might be natural for your stronger hand to be like that. So a good way to see is to do one cycle starting with the heel. And then another cycle starting with the fingers. And what you may notice is that when you do the one that starts with the fingers, you might get this. And you'll hear the offbeat more than you'll hear the onbeat, just because our ear is quite often in Western world anyway, trained to listen for the start of the bar. So if you're practicing with a heel, there might be an automatic sort of preference for doom-cha, doom-cha, but you might not even notice that you're doing it. Whereas if you put it on the fingers, you might realise that's what's happening there, yeah? Okay, cool. Okay, so now that we've practiced the heel and the finger touches in your own way, make your own little patterns, it's fun. We're now going to start to add some of those into the Partido Alto rhythm that we looked at yesterday. So just to recap that, we had this rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Remember? If not, go back and check it out. It's right there, yesterday. We're going to add, though, this time, ooh, suddenly it sounds a bit fancy, but actually all we're adding is, that's it, twice. How that's going to fit in is after the slap, we're going to go like this. That's it. So just practice that first. Get a slap. Naturally, we're going to then want to go to a heel and then fingers. Okay, so we're going to get something like this. So just practice that a few times. Pause the video and actually just practice getting that really smooth first with the tip. Important. So the drum's coming up to meet the slap, the down, and then the fingers. Yeah. And get that as fast as you can get it so that it sounds smooth, like this. Okay, that sounded good, or even slower. Then continue. Okay. All right. Cool. The next thing to add to that little phrase is a tone on the thumb. So da, chi, chi, dum, those 4 hits are going to unlock the whole thing for you. So it's worth practicing that on its own like this. Yeah. So how that fits in, if you just check it out first, then I'll break it down again with the introduction phrase as well. Dum da, dum 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 da, dum dum da chiki dum 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 da chiki gum gum ga chiki dum 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 da chiki gum gum baraka dum dum dum. Right? So on the drum, it's going to sound like this. Rather than the human drum, the drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what's going to happen when you've hit that slap, dum ja dum 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 ja chi chi, it's going to come straight out of the introduction. Do you remember the introduction was 6 beats? Dum da dum 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 da. Yeah, the slap on the end. From that slap, we're going to go straight into that jiggy jig phrase. Yeah? Ah, okay, starting to feel where that goes now. Here we go. And then add in the tone on the end. So if I continued the rhythm slowly, check it out. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And again. you get on with that. That's enough for today. But now you can go off and practice that and pause in between stuff, you know, make sure that you've really got a sense of how those beats fit together. And if I give you some other recordings to listen to at the bottom, you can start to hear how other artists use Partido Alto and start to hear it within tracks, and you'll realise you've heard it a ton of times before without even realising it, okay? So enjoy. So that was lesson 4, tipping and adding into our Partido Alto. And if we were to play that on a drum a little bit higher, which is typically what's used in a samba sort of groove. Yeah, you start to hear the characteristic of that kind of rhythm coming out on this sort of instrument because it's a plastic head. It's got that really high sound, which would cut over the top of a samba bateria, a huge block of drummers playing in the street, hundreds, thousands of people, and you'd have probably 1 or 2 people playing a pandeiro either in the street or on like a truck, like an electric sort of, electro live sound truck kind of thing, playing along with people with guitars, cavaquinhos, singing over the top of this huge bateria of drummers. So this instrument wants to be cranked up quite high for it to get that cutting across sort of quality. Drums like my other one here are fine to use for samba, but you might use them in a smaller setup, like, you know, in a bar with some snacks and a beer, a drink, and sitting playing on a nice sunny afternoon. You might choose to use this because it's a bit softer sound, yeah? So each drum has its own quality, each style has its own characteristics as well. So give those a go, let me know how you get on. Silly postman.